All right, these are your notes for adding and subtracting decimal numbers. So yesterday we did multiplication and division. Today we're going to remind you how to add and subtract decimal numbers. So first, when adding and subtracting decimal numbers, remember you must line up the decimal point. And add zeros where needed. Okay. Also, don't forget that we're adding and subtracting positive and negative decimals. So just as a reminder for integer rules, remember when you're adding integers that have the same sign, rational numbers that have the same sign, you're going to add and keep their sign. Remember, that's a little different than multiplication. So remember that it's add and keep the sign. When you add different signs, you're actually going to subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the larger number. Okay, and then remember when you subtract, you need to do leave, change, opposite. Please don't stop doing that yet. You don't have my permission yet. And then follow addition rules. Remember, subtracting integers or subtracting rational numbers don't have their own set of rules. They follow the addition rules, which is why you have to do leave, change, opposite. So we have some example problems here. And then it says you try. I think I'm gonna be hit or miss a little bit. I'll probably do like 4 of them with you, and then I'm gonna have you try 5 of them on your own. So here we go. I have negative 8 and 106 thousandths minus 98 hundredths. I see it's subtraction, which means I need to leave, change, and opposite. So I'm gonna rewrite this as negative 8 and 106 thousandths plus negative 98 hundredths. Now I see my signs are the same, and same means I need to add them together. And I know that when I add decimal numbers, I have to line up the decimal point. So I have 8.106 and then 0.98, 0.98. Now I'm going to add a 0 here, okay, as a placeholder. Okay. We're going to add them together because the signs are the same. So 6 plus 0 is 6, 0 plus 8 is 8, 1 plus 9 is 10, 1 plus 8 is 9. The decimal point comes straight down. I look at my signs. The signs are the same, so I bring the sign along with it. The sign stays the same. So negative 9 and 86 thousandths. Okay, let's try the next one. Negative 11 and 52 hundredths minus negative 6 and 3 tenths. I see subtraction, so I know I need to do leave, change, and opposite. Now I see my signs are different, and different means I need to subtract. So I'm going to line these up, 11 and 52 hundredths on the top, and then I'm going to put the decimal. It's 6 on this side and 3 on this side, and I'm going to add zeros where needed. Anywhere there's an empty place value, I'm going to add a 0. Now, we said because the signs are different, we're going to subtract. So 2 minus 0 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. Bring down my decimal point. 11 minus 6 is 5. So I know my answer is 5 and 22 hundredths. Then I look. 11 is bigger than 6, and 11 was negative. So my answer should be a negative 5 and 22 hundredths. Let's try 2 more, and then I want you to try some on your own. So I have negative 6 and 25 hundredths plus 3 and 9 tenths. Okay, it's adding, so I don't need to LCO, but I do see my signs are different, and when the signs are different, I need to subtract. So I ignore the negative sign for a second. I put the larger number on top. 6.25 is bigger. 6 is bigger than 3, so 6 goes on the top. Then I have 3.9 underneath it. I need to put a 0 here as a placeholder. My signs are different, so I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 0 is 5. I need to borrow here. So the 6 becomes a 5 and the 2 becomes 12. 12 minus 9 is 3. 5 minus 3 is 2. And I bring my decimal point straight down. Now, I know my answer is 2 and 35 hundredths. I got to decide if it's positive or negative. 6 is larger than 3 and 6 was negative. So my answer should be negative 2 and 35 hundredths. Okay, let's try this one together. I have negative 4 and 52 hundredths plus 3 and 26 hundredths. Already addition, so I don't need the LCO. I need to line them up with the larger number on top. And when I say larger number, again, ignore the negative sign. 4 is bigger than 3, so the 4 needs to be on the top. I need to make sure I'm lining up my decimal points. Now I'm going to see what I need to do. My signs are different. Different means I subtract. Can't do this, so I'm going to borrow and make this a 12. So 12 minus 6 is 6. 4 minus 2 is 2. 4 minus 3 is 1. Bring the decimal point straight down. So I know my number part is 1 and 26 hundredths. My 4 is bigger than 3. My 4 is negative, so my answer should be negative 1 and 26 hundredths. So you can either pause your video and try the next 5 on your own, and then fast forward and check your answers, or you can continue working with me, whichever you would prefer. So here I have negative 7 and 4 tenths, minus 5 and 18 hundredths. I see subtraction, so I know I need to do leave, change, and opposite, just like if they were whole numbers. I see my signs are the same, but first I need to line up the decimal points. 7 is bigger than 5, so it's going to go on top, so I have 7.4. And then underneath it, I have 5.1 and 8. I see I need to put a 0 placeholder in above the 8. I see my signs are the same now that I've rewritten them, which means I'm going to add the numbers together. 0 plus 8 is 8. 4 plus 1 is 5. 7 plus 5 is 12. Bring my decimal point straight down. So I get 12 and 58 hundredths, and then I'm going to decide on my sign. In adding, when my signs are the same, I keep the sign. So negative 12 and 58 hundredths should be the answer. Okay, let's try the next one. It's adding. I know 6 is bigger than 2, so my 6 is going to go on the top. My 2 and 35 hundredths is going to go on the bottom, making sure to line up my decimal points. I see my signs are different. That means I need to subtract those numbers. So I need to borrow here. I'm going to borrow from the 1 and make it a 0, and this becomes 13. So 13 minus 5 is 8. I need to borrow again. So 10 minus 3 is 7. And then 5 minus 2 is 3, and you bring your decimal point straight down. Now I know my number part, I got to check my sign. Since this was adding and my signs were different, I take the sign of the larger number, and 6 is bigger than 2, so my answer is going to be negative 3 and 78 hundredths. All right, I see subtraction, which means I need to do some leave, change. I don't even need to put parentheses in there, but since I started, I'll leave them. Opposite, because it was a negative and now it's a positive. I know 8 is bigger than 3, so I'm going to put the 8 on top. So I have 8 and 6 tenths. And then lining up my decimal point, I have 3 and 27 hundredths. I know I need to put a 0 in here so that it saves the place value. Now I'm going to look. I see my signs are different, and different means I'm going to subtract. So I can't do 0 minus 7. So I need to borrow, and now it becomes a 10. So 10 minus 7 is 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. 8 minus 3 is 5. And that decimal point comes straight down. So I know my number part is 5 and 33 hundredths. Now I'm going to determine the sign. 8 is bigger than 3, and 8 was negative. So my answer is negative 5 and 33 hundredths. All right, let's look here. 3 and 38 hundredths plus negative 5 and 6 tenths. It's already addition. So now I'm going to line up my decimals, starting with the larger number on top. So I have 5 and 6 tenths on the top. And on the bottom, I'm going to have 3 and 38 hundredths. I see that I need to put a 0 here as a placeholder. Now I'm going to look at my signs. My signs are different, so that means I'm going to subtract. I'm going to borrow, make this a 5 and this a 10. So 10 minus 8 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. 5 minus 3 again is 2. So I know the number portion is 2 and 22 hundredths. The 5 is bigger than the 3, and the 5 was negative, so my answer should be negative 2 and 22 hundredths. Try one more on the side, and then we're going to try some order of operations problems a little bit. So I have negative 2 and 74 thousandths plus 1 and 8 tenths. 2 is bigger than 1, so I know that's the number that's going to go on the top. I'm going to put the 1 and 8 tenths right below it, making sure to line up my decimal points, and I need to add a couple zeros here as placeholders. My signs are different, and different means I need to subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. 7 minus 0 is 7. Can't do this, so I'm going to borrow. 10 minus 8 is 2. 1 minus 1 is 0, and I bring the decimal point straight down. So I know I get 274 thousandths. The 2 is bigger than the 1, and the 2 was negative. So my answer is negative 274 thousandths. Let's try the back. So it's got some order of operations, but it's just adding and subtracting, no multiplying and dividing. So remember, when it's just adding and subtracting, we move across the problem from left to right. So I know I'm going to do this first. I'm going to do my work over here. So I see I have 15 and 6 tenths. That's bigger. 15 is bigger than 2, so the 15 and 6 tenths is going to go on the top. Then I have 2 and 38 hundredths on the bottom. Now be very careful when you line this up, because I could easily see some of you lining it up like this. But remember, this is a no-no because you have to have your decimal points lined up. So my decimal points are lined up. I see that I need to add a 0. Now I'm going to go back and look. My signs are different, which means I have to subtract them. I'm going to borrow here. 10 minus 8 is 2. 5 minus 3 is 2. 15 minus 2 is 13. Bring my decimal point straight down. So I know this is 13 and 22 hundredths. The 15 is bigger than the 2, and the 15 is positive, so my answer is positive 15 or 13 and 22 hundredths. Bring the rest down. Okay. I see subtraction, so I'm okay if you want to start doing this. Watch. Leave, change, opposite, and some of you have already started to do that, which is fine. Okay, so now I look, and I see 140 is definitely bigger than 13, so that's going to go on the top. And the 13 and 22 hundredths is going to go on the bottom, making sure my decimal points are lined up. I'm going to add a 0 here as a placeholder. I'm going to look. My signs are different, so I need to subtract yet again. 5 minus 2 is 3. Now, I can't borrow from here because it's already a 0. So I need to do a double borrow. So this 4 becomes a 3, which makes this 10. But I need to borrow from this 10 to make this 10, which means that 10 becomes a 9. So that double borrow really trips some of us up. So be careful. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 3 is 6. 3 minus 1 is 2. And 1 minus 0 is 1. And then bring your decimal point straight down. So I know my final answer is 126 and 83 hundredths. I'm going to go back and look at my problem. 140 is bigger than 13, and 140 is negative. So my answer then should be negative. All right, let's look at the next one. I know this is going to be my first problem, and I know I need to leave, change, and opposite that problem. So I'm going to put 712 and 14 hundredths on the top, and 356 and 8/10 on the bottom, making sure to line up my decimal point, which means I need to bring down a 0. I see my signs are different, and different means subtract. 4 minus 0 is 4. I need to borrow here. Make this an 11. 11 minus 8 is 3. I need to borrow here and make this an 11. 11 minus 6 is 5. I need to borrow again and make that a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5, and 6 minus 3 is 3. Bring your decimal point straight down. So I have 355.34, 354 and 34 hundredths. The 712 was positive, so that's positive answer. Okay, minus negative 9 and 3 hundredths. I'm going to leave, change, opposite. So now I see my signs are the same. I'm just going to come over here and use this over here. I'm going to line up my decimal points. Okay. And since my signs are the same, this time I'm going to add. 4 plus 3 is 7. 3 plus 0 is 3. 5 plus 9 is 14. 1 plus 5 is 6. 3 plus 0 is 0. And my decimal point comes straight down. So I get 364 and 37 hundredths. And since they were both positive, I keep the sign, and there's my answer. If you want to try the last two on your own, I will put up the correct answers, and you can try them and see if you get the right answer. So this one should be negative 5 and 19 hundredths. And this one should end up being 44 and 26 hundredths. Now that you finished this page with me, get on Schoology, and you'll see a practice in the file folder also that I want you to try. And just like every time, if you get a 70% or higher, I will give you credit. If it's below a 70%, you need to try again. If you get stuck, that tells you you need to ask me some questions the next time I see you.